Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catapult's Thinking Differently series. I'm Dr. Cheryl Richards, President and CEO of Catapult, and it is my pleasure to bring to us a very good and exciting topic today, because what I know is we are all overwhelmed in our work and personal lives. And I know as we are bringing people into the webinar, they're probably dashing from a meeting that just ended at 9:59 or 10 o'clock, or maybe it even ran over till 10:01. And Zoom has created this opportunity for us to pack even more into our days than we thought was possible, because we don't have that travel time between meetings. So as we allow most of our attendees to Zoom in from wherever else they were, we'll get started talking a little bit about our topic for today: overcoming overwhelm for HR professionals. We know HR professionals have been slammed and overwhelmed since the pandemic started in ways that are really different and challenging. They haven't accelerated. The pandemic slowed down, but the duties for HR professionals have really accelerated. We know that you're getting pulled in many different directions and need to be experts in all of those. And so Catapult is here to help. Catapult, if you are a member, you know you have access to 24/7 HR advice and employment law services. And then we bring you events like this to provide resources, tips, and insights to hopefully make you feel like you're not alone and you have someone here to help you. So let me start our conversation today and talk a little bit about our mission at Catapult, really to provide employers with the confidence to navigate everyday operational challenges so that you can make your workplaces more effective and your people more successful. And today I'm joined by two individuals who are here to help Catapult live out our mission. First, I'm going to introduce Sarah Olin. Sarah Olin is the founder and CEO of LUMO, a company whose mission is to support working parents and the companies that employ them. She is professionally trained by world-renowned leaders such as Dr. Brené Brown and Mark Hunter, and Sarah has over 10,000 hours of coaching and facilitation experience. She is credentialed by the International Coach Federation and certified by Accomplishment Coaching. Sarah's professional background, her competence, her leadership, and her dedication have opened doors for her to coach leaders at the World Nation, Verizon, the National Basketball Association, Google, Duke Energy, Calvin Klein, and Bloomberg. She's also been featured as a keynote speaker as Amazon's first ever International Working Moms Day. And we all know we have International Women's Day coming up tomorrow. You will hear from her presentation later today Sarah's passion about partnering with clients to create results, help manage priorities, balance time and commitments, and increase productivity. So we're delighted to have Sarah as our featured speaker today. Thank you, Sarah, for being here with us.
So happy to be here.
Joining Sarah is Catapult's own Kendra Stewart, and Kendra serves as our manager of our HR on Demand group. Kendra's passion has always been figuring out complex problems. She's been a consultant to help people empower their business and professional development. She loves sharing information through our HR tools and experiences, and really helping improve processes and helping individuals complete projects. Kendra brings over 25 years of leading HR initiatives in multiple industries, including technology, energies, services, and healthcare. And she has deep expertise in talent development, workforce planning, strategic HR implementation, and management consulting. She jokes that she knows enough to be dangerous in every HR function, but not enough to end up in jail. And we are thankful for that. Kendra has an MS in HR and HR management and OD from Loyola in Chicago, and multiple SPHR and SHRM-SCP certifications. She is based in Charlotte, where she and her husband, their 4-year-old, stay plenty busy. So I'm going to turn it over now and go off camera, and I'm going to let Sarah kick us off with some tips around overcoming overwhelm. And then throughout this, we'll have a couple opportunities for you to engage with us in poll questions. And then we will get into a dialogue with Sarah and Kendra. So Sarah, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. How's my connection? Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you. Your video has frozen a few times.
Yeah, but we can still hear you just fine, Sarah. So I think you're good to continue.
Okay, good. It's a joke that I have with many people on my team that when their face is frozen, I love to get a screenshot and then share it with them later. People love that, just so you know. That's a pro tip right there. So I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you today, and I truly have a soft spot in my heart for HR leaders and professionals, because oftentimes the HR teams are the heart of any company. They're the people. And when people have problems, they reach out to their HR specialists. When they don't know where to go or who else to turn to, they reach out to their HR team. So you're here because you're passionate about the work that you do, you care deeply about the world and the people that you serve. And I am too, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be here in this conversation with all of you today. So Mila, we can go to the next slide. So this is LUMO. Cheryl introduced LUMO quickly. We live at the intersection of parenthood and work. Our mission is to support working parents and keep working parents in the workforce. And we do this by providing training and programs before, during, and after parental leave. We can go to the next slide. Oh, just if we go one back, Mila, we missed one. And that is the slide. Thank you so much. And this is just an acknowledgement slide of differing perspectives and experiences. So I've been doing this work for 10 years, training leaders at organizations all over the country and beyond. And what I'm sharing today is meant to support and enhance you. And if something here doesn't resonate, that's okay too. You can just leave it. But know that this is not the full scope of ever all there was on time, busyness, and overwhelm. This is just one perspective or lens to look through. Now we're ready for the next slide, Mila. Thank you. So, time, busyness, and overwhelm. Oh my, it's like the Wizard of Oz, right? It's one of those experiences, one of the things that we can all relate to as employees, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, or as people working in the world. It's a very modern conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Kendra, there you are. Did you want to put something in?
No, I was saying absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think everybody, just by looking at this slide, probably has a lot of things going through their mind about what it is that they think it means.
Right. And that's the super important part, is it means something different to everyone. And that's actually where we're going to start. When I start any training, development, or leadership conversation, we start with, where are we on the mall map? And the thing that we have to understand is the context in which we're speaking, right? The larger conversation that we're living inside of. And the first thing we want to do is distinguish our relationship to time. So we have a relationship to everything: the weather, technology, our clothing, the city that we live in, the work that we do, our colleagues, everything, everything, everything. We have a relationship to everything. So we're going to put up a poll and look at your relationship to time. So the first option being neutral, I'm not impacted greatly by time. The second option, there's enough time for everything I want and need to do. Or the third option, there's never enough time for all I want and need. So don't overthink it, just select your answer, what really resonates for you.
Sarah, we have about 70% of the vote in, so we'll give it just another few minutes.
Sure. Absolutely.
I don't think it's going to change much. I'm watching the poll closing, so there are your results.
Got it. Yeah, and this is pretty typical, that the overwhelming experience is there's never enough time for all I want and need to do, with 4% saying not greatly impacted by time, I have a neutral experience of time, and 4% saying I have enough time. I have a great relationship with time. Time and I are friends, and that's great.
I mean, I think it's amazing too, because, I was looking and thinking that I might have actually seen a larger percentage of people that might have said that time is on their side. I didn't expect to see 91. I did expect to see a larger group there, but definitely would be great if this were the type of presentation where we could get some of that feedback to see what are people doing who do feel like they have time on their side, right? I mean, so many of us definitely, especially for our members too, are calling to say that that's the least thing that they have and that they need help and support in a number of different things, which is why, we have organizations like Catapult and LUMO here. So it's kind of interesting to see that we have such a small percent that are feeling good.
Yeah, and Kendra, that's a lot of what I see in the world too. So it tracks. And the thing that I'll say about time that is really, really interesting is that it's a completely invented, it's a made up construct. And wildly, it's the one thing that we all agree on. If I said it's 10:14 a.m., everyone would say, yes, it's 10:14 a.m., right? And this is true globally, country to country, right? Except for maybe some outliers who don't believe in time. But pretty universally speaking, we can all agree that the flight's leaving at this time. We can agree on what time it is. And, right, and we have so many conversations about time. Time is money. We're running out of time. Time waits for no one. We love to talk about time. We kill time, we save time, we waste time, and we complain that there's never enough of it. So one of the things I'd like to talk about from a time perspective, and one way to illustrate the elasticity of time, is the experience of being a meditator. So before I started LUMO in New York, I had my own business where I brought mindfulness and meditation programs into big companies all over Manhattan, and I taught people how to meditate. And if you're a meditator, you know how elastic time is. I can sit down to meditate one morning and time flies, right? We've all had that experience, whether you meditate or not, of having a great time, just being really present in the moment, and just time moves. And then we've had the experience of time just dragging. Will this ever end? This meeting, this conversation, whatever it is, right? So it's different for everyone, but it's very elastic and fluid. So what I found in my work is that it's never really about the time. Myla, if we can go to the next slide, we can look at what really drives people's time conversations. So we've got unrealistic expectations of themselves. there's a lack of well-being. There's a direct correlation between time and well-being. Our capacity expands exponentially when our well-being is intact, right? And when we don't have a foundation of well-being, things seem harder, takes more time, things like that. The next bullet we have is scarcity, right? So scarcity is a general lens or filter that we're putting on anything. So if we're the sort of person who doesn't have enough time, or if we always feel like there's not enough time, we can also experience that in other places in our life. I don't have enough money, I don't have enough resources, there's not enough support. There's often a scarcity mindset that leads to an experience of lack of time. Number 4, this 4th bullet here, we've got our stories about time. So that's how we speak about time, the narratives that we're inside of. The next bullet is not asking for or allowing support. The next one is busyness as self-worth. We're going to get into this one in just a moment, but this is a really tricky one for the modern leader, that busyness and that conversation is so linked to self-worth. And then in the last bullet, we've got all or nothing thinking, where it's very binary. It's very black or white. There's very little opportunity for gray. So I often tell people that they have the time for whatever they want to have the time for. And people get very upset with me, but I'm okay with that because that's my job. And I'll ask different leaders. They'll say, I don't have time for working out. I don't have time for well-being. And I say, and I'll ask a question like, well, if your company's success depended on your capacity or ability to create 10 minutes a day to work out, would you do it? The answer is always yes. Or if your child's or partner or parents' happiness depended on your ability to carve out 10 minutes to move your body, would you do it? Every time it's yes. So consider that often it's that we are not, the what for is not big enough for those things that we don't have time for. We just haven't created it in a way where we would run through a wall to make it happen. So one of the things that we said earlier, time is an invented conversation, and it's impossible to manage an invented conversation. So what can we manage instead? And it's our energy and our focus. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to have another quick poll around where do we lose energy? Because we all have places in our life where we are losing energy as leaders. So you may be able to check more than one box here, but for our purposes, just pick your favorite. Just pick your favorite place where you lose energy. And it could be staying up too late, news or social media, unnecessary meetings, lack of well-being. There are so many, but this is all we could get in the poll. These were some favorites, if you will.
Sarah, we've got an interesting split, so let's keep this open for another minute.
Absolutely. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where the split is occurring.
Yeah.
I myself, this summer, back in July, I was visiting my family in Rhode Island, and I realized that I was just spending a lot of time scrolling on Instagram.
There's our results.
Wow.
Wow. Lack of well-being, that one is much higher than I had expected. I was expecting to see social media being at the top.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
100%.
Meetings.
Yeah. And it looks like the biggest place where we're losing energy collectively is lack of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really, really tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me to see that alongside the lack of well-being, it is the unnecessary meetings too, because if you think about it, just like what you were talking about, like you can relate it personally, but how many times have we heard the term creating meetings just for meetings, right? And all of us are just creating meetings that maybe we don't need, or spending more time on meetings that then create more unnecessary work for us. And it kind of feeds, Sarah, I think, back into your earlier discussion about time and where we lose it, and how personally we end up realizing that we don't feel we have the time to do things. So I think maybe sometimes you're right, they can feed into each other based on how we end up setting up our day, or what we end up choosing is important, or how much we determine we need to put time into one thing versus another, like our meetings at work.
Yeah. And it's often, Kendra, it's automatic for so many of us. It's just a habit that we've created. I shared when we had the poll up that the place where I was losing energy was on Instagram. I like the travel pictures, I like the fashion pictures, the decor pictures. I like to see what people are doing. And I just said, I'm done losing energy here. And I took it off my phone and I haven't looked at it since. So it was a conscious choice, but the meetings conversation is also an automatic behavior that we do. We just, every challenge that we have or every issue, we answer it with a meeting. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, and what's so great about this, and we'll have a slide about this at the end, is that, and there's one formula that we use in coaching, and it's awareness plus action plus support equals results, right? So part of the opportunity that we have today and that we're looking to do is raise your awareness around time, busyness, and overwhelm, so that then you can practice choosing something different or interrupting it, right? Because no fair, the famous one is I know, and then not changing it. But when you're up to big things in the world and you're trying to produce major results, that doesn't work. So that's what we're here to do. We're actually here to change. So let's go to the next slide. And we're going to move into time's best friend, busyness. And this is, I love talking about this conversation so much because I've had so much personal experience with it, where I started my business when my daughter was 6 months old. Great idea, highly recommended. Infant and new business, great, right? What could possibly go wrong? And I remember, people would ask me, how are you? How's it going? And it was just busy, 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 busy. Busy was my swan song. It was the conversation that I was in every single day. And, being a coach, of course, I had a coach and I wasn't going to be victimized by my own busyness. I brought it and worked through it with my coach. And what I realized is that there was a big, big payoff for me in being busy. People would say to me, Sarah, how do you do it all? How do you get on a plane and then come back home for the birthday party and do all, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And they'd say, you're so great. And it was just, oh, tell me more, right? There's a big payoff to our busyness. And also, on the other hand, it allowed me to really avoid hard conversations, or, my best friend is sick and because I'm so busy, I don't have to spend a lot of time processing that or being with that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see too, Sarah, how that can relate to, as an HR professional, and I'm sure a lot of us, and the members that are on the line can speak to this. How many performance review conversations have we been in, and performance evaluation seasons where You commonly hear the term, well, so-and-so say so busy. They're constantly here. They're working for however many hours. They seem like they're doing so much work for us. But when you take it down to brass tacks, maybe you should look beyond that question, right? What are they really doing to actually contribute? It's maybe not about the hours or just how much they look like they might be doing, but really at the end of the day, taking a look at how much are they really actually bringing to the table. So I can understand what you mean, because I think it happens all the time. You're right. Folks sometimes get rewarded for just appearance, the appearance of busy, rather than what you're really contributing and bringing to the table. It happens all the time, I think, for we HR people, perhaps out there, and even operations folks that see it.
Oh, 100%. And it's all over. I've, worked with lawyers who were limiting their water intake so they wouldn't have to get up and go to the bathroom. Just wild things that, right, that people actually do. It's true. Mila, let's get the next slide and we'll hear we'll look at a great quote by Brene Brown. And she says, one of the most universal numbing strategies is what I call crazy busy. I often say that when they start having 12-step meetings for busyaholics, they'll need to rent out football stadiums. We're a culture of people who've bought into the idea if we stay busy enough, the truth of our lives won't catch up with us. So I often ask my clients, like, hey, what's great about being busy? And they say, nothing. And I say, nope, it's serving a purpose. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it, right? And your job as a leader, as a professional, is to find out what it is. Right? To have that awareness and then practice something different. So let's look at the next slide. And we're going to look at some payoffs to busyness. Makes the day go by faster, staves off boredom, creates a sense of importance, guilty, creates a
sense of value or worth. Yeah, I'm sure that happens to a lot of us, right?
For sure. It's Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, says that we backdoor brag about being busy. It's code for being successful and important.
Yeah. And again, I think we just have a culture where it's rewarded oftentimes, and we don't really realize that we're doing it because it appears as though it's a big payoff or incentive to be that way. But is it really that helpful? And I think you're right, Sarah. Maybe steps to figure out, how do we break the cycle and get out of something like this, right?
For sure, because it's not, when you think about your values as an employee, as an employer, as a leader, nobody's value is busyness. That's not a personal value that people have. They have other beautiful values, and busyness is often when our values get co-opted, right? Or we're now operating from fear when, and busyness is such a habit for so many people. Also makes life more exciting. This was a big, big one for me, able to avoid hard things. Absolutely.
It's a big one for everyone, right? I mean, how many times, it's procrastination. It's the key behind procrastination too, right? I mean, you might not do something just to avoid the things you don't want to do. And oftentimes at work, I mean, I can't tell you from the perspective of the consulting group, we have so many calls oftentimes, even for something as simple as an employee handbook that our members might need help to review. And, the key term that we hear is folks are just busy. They've been too busy to even get to something as simple as, I need help with my handbook. And I mean, it could be for a number of things. Like, there's a lot of other things that I feel are more important, right? There's a lot of other things that I feel I need to get done. Maybe deep down inside, it's the things they don't want to do, right? So they push off the handbook because maybe that's the tactical work or the hard work or the boring stuff. So it's a little bit easier to do something that feels better to do first. And so that's what folks call us for a lot as well, potentially.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to get busy with little things in service of avoiding the big things, right?
Right.
And not just at work, but in our lives, right? If I'm so busy at work and I'm bringing work home, I don't have to deal with, what's going on with my partner or my family or my community or whatever really, really matters to me in the world. So there are oftentimes lots of payoffs, and not to mention the last one, which is so important, love, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get love when, as a high performer, high producer, people celebrate me, I get paid more, all the different things for, existing that way in the world. But getting love is a big one.
Yeah. That can end up transitioning or translating over to so many different things in the working world too, right? Merits, pay, attention, appreciation, all of these different things that people look for. That's what keeps people there. And sometimes, again, that term of busyness is what ends up getting those types of rewards that people always look for, even at work.
Yep. Beautiful. It's so true. And our relationship with time and our experience of being chronically busy often leads to the crescendo experience of overwhelm. So we can take a look at the next slide. What I think, say, and listen for creates my reality. So here we're looking at overwhelm as the common cold of the modern leader, right? Of the modern employee, the modern worker, right? So much overwhelm exists. And fundamentally, there's a few different ways to look at overwhelm. One is a disempowered relationship to the work that you have to do. Two, we're going so fast and doing so much that we don't always have time to metabolize our experience, right? So when we're overwhelmed, it's just that we're not digesting and really experiencing all the things that are happening to us. And ultimately, overwhelm is a fear-based conversation. It's low-grade fear in a productivity costume. So the great news about the habit of overwhelm is that it's not your height. You can change it, right? It's not a permanent thing. It's something that we can work through. So on the next slide, we're going to look at some of our tells around how we know we're in overwhelm. So the first one is irrational thoughts. We're not able to think clearly, and we lose perspective, where things become very all or nothing very, very quickly. We're paralyzed. We feel stuck. We can't take action. We're just in a worrying cycle. Disproportionate reactions. I know when I'm overwhelmed, someone will ask me a question and it's often a clipped, snippy response. The punishment doesn't fit the crime, right? It's that sort of experience. Some people withdraw and they go quiet. Mood changes or irritability, that's another one that I have. Cognitive fatigue or feeling confused. Oftentimes when people are really deep in their overwhelm, they're not present to what's happening or all the facts. They mix things up. So that's another tell of overwhelm and how it shows up. And to be clear, overwhelm is a very human experience that we all have from time to time. Some of us more frequently and more profoundly than others. So as we start to wrap up, I'm going to share a tool that we've developed at LUMO to support people in dealing with their overwhelm. And basically, we call this the Overwhelm Pattern Tool. And our ultimate goal here is to recognize overwhelm as a pattern and then look at ways to interrupt it. So if we could see the next slide, Mila. Beautiful. So first we have the build. This is before we're actually in overwhelm. This is the experience of saying yes to too many things. Well-being gets delayed or ignored. Things start falling through the cracks, whether it's a meeting or a task. You don't ask for help. An unexpected event occurs that demands immediate attention, and your stack of responsibilities gets too tall and precarious. So this is where, you know, where this is the build phase. This is where it's, I can't, not one more thing, and then one more thing happens, and that's when we move into the next stage, which is actually the overwhelm. Mila, if you want to go to the next slide here. Beautiful. So this is when we're in it. This is when we're no longer in the busy and it's getting hot in here. Now it's on. I'm overwhelmed. I feel like I'm drowning. There's no end in sight. No longer able to problem solve or focus. It's the experience of too much. Your fight or flight or freeze kicks in. And then we move into the next phase. After we've really experienced our overwhelm, then typically we're in a period of jettison. This is where we're canceling appointments. Now we start to delegate. This is where we know we can't take one more thing and we're just pushing things off, right? Canceling meetings, all the things. And then we move into a recovery stage. You survived, you're still here, you're through the rough part and you haven't necessarily started the build yet. You're never going to do it again, this is never going to happen again, and then eventually we move into build. And the thing about this pattern or process is that from a time perspective, it happens differently for everyone. So for some people, they might be in recovery for a really short amount of time. They might spend a lot of time in build and a very little bit of time in actual overwhelm and then the jettison, right? So I know for myself, when I was really working on getting over my experience of overwhelm, it was all my time was spent in the upper left quadrant of build. It was always constantly one more thing. We call it death by one more email. Just one more email, you know, right. She died by death by one more email. So it's, how do we back out of the build? How do we step off of the pattern? And the great thing about patterns, in order to interrupt it, is to not do the next predictable thing in the pattern. And this is a practice. This takes practice. Right? Back in the day, before the pandemic, when I found myself right between build and overwhelm, right before I was about to go over the edge, I would go to these hot yoga classes that were really intense and sweaty, and it would just help me get out of my head, get into my body, and reset. So it would move me back down the build, and I don't do that anymore. So now I have other places, but for a long time I had this little 4 quadrants above my desk, and I would always be looking at, where am I right now? Am I in the build? Am I in overwhelm? Am I in jettison? Am I in recovery? And how can I get back to a more empowered place? How can I be different, think different, take a break, get some perspective, get some support before I have to go to overwhelm.
Yeah.
So one of the takeaways I would say is to please find a few places here to notice where you can interrupt your pattern. Kendra, did you have something? It sounds like you were going to put something in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on your previous slide. I think that a lot of folks can resonate 100% with, what you're talking about and what stages. I mean, it just reminds me recently of a project that we actually helped a small organization with that's very similar to this. They literally called, and I could literally see all of the different stages that they went through, and they were able to break kind of this chain through this exact process, actually through getting help from us. I mean, when they called, it was based on an investigation, very small healthcare organization, small group of HR, generalist staff. Their entire staff, just from this investigation, it just built up. They found there was more and more employees involved with it. It just expanded. It was beyond their, ability to be able to control through the fact finding, because there was just more and more people that they ended up having to, pull in as a result of it. And the entire staff then felt extremely overwhelmed. By the time they called, they were drowned in, fact-finding reports, data, information, like all these interviews that they had. And the team was stressed out. They had no time for pretty much anything else by the time that they called, and were kind of at a point of desperation where, it had kind of parlayed into a secondary investigation where they didn't even start it because they didn't know where to go or what to do. The leader called essentially realizing, like, we've got to do something different this time. We're not even sure where to go. We're not sure where to start. And that's how they actually ended up engaging us. And it was interesting to help them go through the process, get some consultants to be able to help them with recommendations, how to walk through it, how to see it differently. And they were able to then see a different way out of that process that they usually went through, that had gotten to a point where it was just overbearing. So it's interesting to see how you can break out of it by trying something different.
Yeah. Yes. And Kendra, one of the biggest ways to interrupt overwhelm is to get supported. Truly. I mean, we're not meant to be able to do it all. And that's it's a tightrope that particularly small businesses walk, because, there's cash issues and there's capacity issues, right? And in order to be able to grow and really be successful, we need to be able to have the right support. I would say that it's one of the most important ways to interrupt overwhelm, after recognizing that it's a pattern and what can you practice instead.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a slide to wrap up some of our key takeaways and practices. Notice you're speaking about time, busyness, and overwhelm, and remember what you think, say, and listen for creates your reality. Chronic overwhelm can lead to physical and mental health challenges, including burnout. Overwhelm is ultimately a disempowered relationship to your workload and your responsibilities. And once you get clear on your cycle of overwhelm, you can interrupt it. And the most important things here are to take new action and to get supported. I cannot stress that enough. And let's see what we've got on the next slide here. I think these are just a few. This was the formula that I mentioned earlier. Awareness plus action plus support equals results, right? And if we're not getting the results that we want in our business, this is a great place to start in looking at what's missing here. Are we in the right amount of action? Are we aware of what's working and not working? And do we have the right support structures in place? So this is just a really simple formula to help understand. And awareness is not enough. It's wonderful. We need awareness to be able to take new action, but that's just the beginning. We really need to move the meter in different ways beyond just having the awareness.
Sarah, this has been fascinating, listening to the two of you, and I love the way that you've been able to relate this to our listeners, right? And the overwhelm that they feel in this space of HR. One of your earlier slides had, I think, I was going to pull it back up here to see the saying yes to too many things, and then the bullet that said an unexpected event occurs that demands immediate attention. And I just thought, how many of our participants just live in that space? They can't say no. They're living in an HR world where employees are coming with different requests or demands or needs or resources, and they don't have the opportunity to plan their day in a way where unexpected things won't come up, because you never know in the world of people. And I thought that was really an important slide to mention there. So thank you for the resources. I see your contact information there for attendees, can write down if they're interested in contacting you at LUMO to learn a little bit more. And Kendra, I'd love if you want to give a few minutes on some of the HR on-demand services that are available through Catapult and some of the experiences like the one that you described in that story about the small organization that you guys just helped, how we can help plan for days when the unexpected comes up.
Yeah, absolutely, Cheryl. Thanks. Our team is here. We are available. We are a team of quite a few very seasoned HR professionals that have years of experience. Most of the folks on our team come with well over 20 some years of experience progressively in HR careers, whether it be through specialization and then also through years of HR generalization. So they are here to help. We pretty much support the gamut. I mean, whether the industry has been in manufacturing, which is kind of the bread and butter of a lot of our member organizations that call us, it could be nonprofit organizations, healthcare. They have called very similar to exactly the example I gave. You know, you've got so many different changes that have gone on, especially due to COVID. I mean, we even have, as a part of the Great Resignation, HR people, you know, are moving these days. And in the smaller organizations, like probably a lot of our participants on the phone, we can understand there's just no bandwidth, there's no time, there's maybe not enough expertise. We are here to help with all of those solutions. Our folks are very experienced to help with ongoing interim projects. If you need someone that just is going to be there to help you as if they're on your team, all the way down to, you know, your immediate need of a short-term HR project that just needs to get done and get out of the way so that you can get back to whatever it is that you're doing. We help with all of that in between, like I had said earlier, audits, handbook reviews, handbook revisions, interim HR, fractional support. All of these things we can help to deliver based on whatever needs and outcomes that you are. We are essentially, from a business standpoint, just like what Sarah talked about, the support that can be there for your team. So we have multiple different types of packages even available, depending upon what it is that you might be looking for. We welcome for you to please connect with us, give me a call. Give my boss Jill a call. Our numbers are down at the bottom, as well as our email contact information. But we have packages that could be as short term as 3 months if you need someone ongoing, all the way up to year-long packages based off of what you need and how much support that you think that you might be able to. And again, even for projects, we have hourly rates as well. So we look forward to being able to provide that support that folks might need to break that overwhelm chain that we just talked about And we're here for both the members and non-members alike. So definitely look forward to hearing from anyone who might need that support.
And Kendra, we do have a question that came into the chat around the additional cost for those services, if you want to speak to that at all.
Sure. Our costs range anywhere from, it just depends. You know, we can have, if you need something that's expedited, generally it could be anywhere from the 125 range and higher. What we usually welcome is for anyone to definitely set up some time. What we like to do, because we like to make sure that we're meeting needs first and we're accomplishing whatever your goals are, is to talk in detail about exactly what it is that you need to have, what it is that you need to have performed. What's great about Catapult is it's not just the consultants that are behind you when you have us come on board. We've got, you know, talent acquisition teams that are there. We've got compensation teams that are there. We've got benefits teams that are there. They're alongside the expertise of all of these different, very strongly experienced and seasoned HR people. So we want to walk through what you want to accomplish. And that's how I think we can then determine what is a rate that probably is very helpful in order to be able to, hopefully long-term, be able to suit whatever needs that you want to get accomplished.
Thank you, that was great. And I will say that I think we probably have members and non-members on this call. And so for our members, we do offer member pricing on a lot of our services, both our training and development. And sometimes if you're not a member, it's advantageous for you to join and have access to all of the things that Catapult membership offers in addition to our on-demand services. So thank you. The other question in our chat, can we get a copy of today's presentation slides? Sarah, do you have any problem with us sending out your slides today?
I'm sorry, hold on.
It sounds like a furry friend has joined. There's probably a delivery at the door. Gary, we will.
So sorry about that. I'm back. Yes, we can send out the slide deck. My request would be just not to share it beyond the people who attended this, because that's some of our intellectual property, the Overwhelm tool. So I'm happy to share it within the confines of this group and just ask that it be kept to the participants and not distributed further.
Excellent, thank you. And for our attendees, thank you for honoring that. We are blessed with great resources and experts like Sarah and her team, and we always appreciate when they provide resources like this to our members and attendees of presentations. So thank you for honoring that in advance. Sarah or Kendra, before we jump into final housekeeping items, anything else that the two of you would like to address as we wrap up today's webinar?
I said a lot. I would just say, please connect on LinkedIn or anywhere. I love being in these conversations and yeah, supporting people with these challenges. It's great. So please consider me a resource.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I think oftentimes a lot of the folks who call us, they just need some help navigating and understanding how we can potentially help. So even if you're not sure, we always look forward to having a conversation. We're here to help, whether you end up wanting to move forward or not, and hopefully we can help with navigating, if at nothing else, something to help you with a part of being members if you're members, and to potentially help answer your questions if you're not. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. Thank you both. And we have some comments coming in. Thank you, Sarah, for the excellent presentation as well. Information about the HRCI and SHRM credits will be sent to you within 48 hours of today's webinar. And so you can register for your professional development credits. And then we hope that you will join us for some upcoming events where we continue our Thinking Differently series Next month, on April 11th, we'll have some legal updates about FMLA and ADA that will be timely for our listeners. And then if you haven't already signed up for our 2023 HR Leadership Series, we have sessions that are all around navigating today's workplace. And we have this event that is on the road in both Charlotte and Raleigh, with topics from recruiting and learning and development and total rewards and compensation to optimizing your HR, which is sort of what we talked about today. So we invite you to attend those day-long leadership series in either Charlotte or Raleigh. As always, we will have our employment law conference. This year, it will be on June 8th and 9th, and it will take place in person in Greensboro. There will be a virtual option as well. That's a great place to get up to date on all of your compliance and legal needs for HR professionals. If you have questions, as always, you can email us meeting@letscatapult.org with any questions about attending our events. Really appreciate everyone being on this call. Appreciate you, Sarah. Appreciate you, Kendra, for the information you've shared with our attendees. In the spirit of not adding to the overwhelm, at 10:58, I'm going to give the gift of 2 minutes back to all of our listeners here. Please let us know if we can help you at Catapult and LUMO Leadership. Thank you all for joining us today.